RotD Deep Dive spoiler-filled discussion of 2018's Bad Samaritan. Now, I mentioned that there was a power discrepancy, that was the balance of power between Robert Sheehan and David Tennant was way too skewed, and by that I mean, okay, the spoilers on this. If you're watching this, you should have watched the movie. If you haven't, you might want to turn this off. But towards the end, when they were at the cabin, and David Tennant, Cale was saying to Sean, "You're the only one that I found to stand toe to toe with me," and so on and so forth. I honestly couldn't see how. It felt like Sean was basically just half-assing his way through this and falling into success by luck. And even then, it was almost handed to him. I didn't really... And that was even up to get to that point, which was still a point of failure. Cale, he was so ahead of things that it was almost boring. And I think one of the things that I think would have balanced things out a lot more is if Cale were not obscenely rich. I know it served the point of the trust fund killer, that kind of thing, but that would have been a fairly simple rewrite if he was just an average guy and, he drove a Volvo and Sean had gone to his house and seen the girl there and so on and so forth. Just think about how much that would have evened the playing field, that if he was able to pull these things out of his hat, if he was able to clean up the mess, if he was able to, trick the police and, keep the investigation on his side, how much more weight that would have held if he didn't have that handicap in his favor of being rich. A lot of this boiled down to the fact that he was rich. It was what allowed him to be successful at this endeavor of his, this cat and mouse game. He cleaned things up. Well, that office didn't used to have carpet. Well, that wall wasn't like that. How do you explain that? Well, it wasn't his cunning, not necessarily. He was just rich. He could afford to, get somebody in there, get things, and they never really explained the whole office carpet thing, which was bothersome to me. I really wish they had kind of dug more into the fine nitty-gritty points of how he managed to pull a lot of the stuff off, because I think that would have been more interesting. But he followed Sean. Well, how did he do that? Well, he happens to have a case full of GPS devices. Well, why not? He's rich. It couldn't have been, one of my favorite scenes of any time in any movie was Chinatown. Jack Nicholson placing the watch behind the person's tire so that when they backed away, he knew exactly what time they did. The little points of cunning that I think are wonderful and could have been added into this movie if they had evened the playing field, if Cale had not been rich and had simply used what he had at his disposal. If that was more limited on an external level, then it would have been coming more from an internal place. That's my point. And then you might have had Sean actually standing toe-to-toe with him. It might have been, one person's character against another person's character. And I don't mean like character on the screen. I mean, personal fortitude. And I think that just would have been a lot more interesting. It's like, well, you make a phone call, you throw a phone out the window, fine. Like I got 50,000 of them. Why not? Sure, he has burner phones. It just gets boring. And it's almost, from a writing standpoint, lazy. It's, well, how did he accomplish this? Well, of course, he has this piece of technology. He's rich. It's kind of the, Bruce Wayne argument there, but at least that's fun because it's a superhero movie. This is a one character, mortal, very grounded, against another character, very mortal and grounded. And when you have that level of power discrepancy, it just doesn't work that well. So that, honestly, this is going to be a pretty short deep dive because that's pretty much one of the only points I wanted to discuss. It's just I really couldn't without it being spoilery. So I did save it for the deep dive. I already went over the accent. I'm really not going to cover that anymore. I think this one fell into a somewhat disappointing level for me just because I really did see a potentially extraordinarily good movie buried in there, just waiting to come out. It felt like a missed opportunity, but that's my opinion of this one, and I would love to at this point hear from you. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you have any notes or opinions that you want to share, please leave them in the comments below. I will be reading them and engaging with them. If you like these videos, I welcome you to click subscribe. Other than that, thank you very much for making me a part of your day. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you.